Kia ora, my name is Robbie and I'm another white man behind a desk. And today we're talking about corporations. They're just like us in that they prefer having more money rather than less. They also have enormous power, which is very much not like us. We're weak and powerless, and our opinions don't matter. Now, sometimes governments bribe powerful corporations to work in their country by giving them cold hard cash, or by making sure that the company has access to cheap labour. Now, obviously, that's not something we would do here in New Zealand, because we're a rich country who doesn't need to. And also, on principle, New Zealanders would just never support giving taxpayer money to enormous multinational corporations, or allow them to exploit our workers. Everyone would hate that, and we'd all say no. Unless, of course, that enormous multinational corporation would like to make some movies about Frodo Baggins' uncle. Then you better believe we're getting on board. Yes, it is time to break down all the ways New Zealand incentivizes big US film companies like Time Warner and Amazon and Disney to make their movies in a little archipelago at the bottom of the world. That's us. So let's start with the simplest strategy of all, bribery. Now, of course, we don't actually bribe anyone to do anything. I've been told by lawyers that it's very important to say that it isn't technically a bribe. It's just giving people a grant to incentivize them to do something. You know, like how the mafia might give the mayor a grant to incentivize him to make a murder case go away. The important thing is, it's not a bribe. So how long have we been not bribing the film industry to work here? Well, it all started when Peter Jackson made some movies about wizards and stuff, and everyone lost their mind. The centre-left Helen Clark-led Labour government decided to offer something called the Large Budget Screen Production Grant for future productions. Okay, let's break that down. Basically, if you met certain criteria and you made your film in New Zealand, we'd give you 12.5% of any money you spent here. So if you spent $100 million making a movie in New Zealand, the New Zealand government would give you $12.5 million in a big sack with a dollar sign on it. Couldn't be simpler. Now, at the time, a lot of folks thought that was a pretty good idea, because everyone loved Lord of the Rings so damn much, and we wanted other movies to be made here because we thought it was cool, and it made us feel important. Unfortunately, other countries thought it was a pretty good idea too. And in order to compete with those countries, that 12.5% number had to keep going up. In 2013, under the centre-right John Key-led national government, James Cameron was flown to New Zealand, and we had a nice, lovely ceremony to celebrate the fact that we were now going to give film companies up to 25% of the money they spent in New Zealand, which is way more than 12.5%. It's at least twice as much. And 25% of a big budget production can be quite a lot of money, especially when you consider that there's actually no cap on the amount of money we'll give out. If you qualify for the grant and your film costs $1 trillion, then the New Zealand government is on the hook for $250 billion. Now obviously that's just a number I made up that's unrealistically high and has no basis in fact, but still scary to think about for sure. And as the percentage has gone up, it's become increasingly unclear if paying Hollywood to work here is actually good for the New Zealand economy. It's generally agreed that if we didn't provide a subsidy, Hollywood wouldn't make their movies here. And there is a real benefit from them spending their dollars in New Zealand. But how much of a benefit? Is it actually worth it? Well, a report from Sense Partners, commissioned by MB to review their own report, showed that from 2014 to 2017, the grant provided a net economic benefit to New Zealand of $343 million. Wow. Amazing. That's so much money. Or, alternatively, it returned a net drain on the economy of negative $45 million. So it might be a boost to the New Zealand economy, or alternatively, it might be a complete disaster. Wonderful. Thanks, economists. It's great to have all of that just cleared up. Thank you so much. Basically, it's just sort of hard to know if any investment made by the government is good, because it comes at the cost of another investment you're not making. You can invest money in a lot of things: education, children, housing, green technology, a big party. You can throw a big party. And all of those things might provide a greater return to the people of New Zealand than paying foreign film companies to work here. We don't know. Once again, we've turned to The Economist for answers, and they've charged us a lot of money to say categorically, huh? Beats me. That's my impression of an economist. Luckily, in 2013, National Ministers said the scheme would just be a short-term cash injection that would wind down in the future. Basically, the plan was, we'll bribe big companies to work here for a bit, and then we'll leverage all of the money that they bring in into a nice, independent local industry. And then we won't need Hollywood anymore. And that was a great idea, which is why it's such a shame that we absolutely did not do that. As it turns out, we've made remarkably few demands from the companies we're giving hundreds of millions of dollars. We're not forcing them to make New Zealand actors famous or hire our creative talent. Basically, if you want 20% of your spending covered by the New Zealand government, here's the flowchart of requirements you have to meet. Okay? You looking at that flowchart? You checking it out? Okay, you might notice there's literally 2 questions. 1, is it a live action movie? And 2, are you spending a lot of money? That's it. Not a lot of leveraging going on there. Okay, not a high bar. When we negotiated with Amazon to make a Lord of the Rings TV show in New Zealand and decided to give them the full 25%, did we force them to cast New Zealand actors so they'd become famous and we could leverage that fame to fund New Zealand projects in the future? No, we did not. Did we require them to create some sort of a pitch program with New Zealand filmmakers? Well, absolutely we did not do that. We got them to run a creative writing class in Auckland, and they agreed to have a member of the New Zealand Film Commission escorted down the red carpet at the series premiere. Wow! Jesus Christ, New Zealand. You're not an excited fan who won a prize. You're a sovereign nation giving away up to $1 billion over the next 5 years. Have some guts. Make some demands. Obviously, the New Zealanders who work on these projects get to work on the biggest Hollywood movies, which gives them money and training and experience. But what do they work on after that? There doesn't seem to be any clear pathway to independence or a focus on New Zealand stories anytime soon. Instead, after working on Avatar 5, they get to start working on Avatar 6. And this becomes even clearer when you look at where Spig money actually ends up. Near billionaire Sir Peter Jackson fought very hard to stop the government releasing information about how much of the screen production grant ends up directly in his pockets. But after an 18-month investigation by the Ombudsman, it was revealed to the New Zealand Herald that between August 2015 and April 2018, the New Zealand government gave out $268 million through the SPG, and $117 million of that had gone to support the work of the Weta Group. That's nearly half. So when Peter Jackson says, hey gang, we got to keep the grant as it is, it's keeping the New Zealand film industry afloat. He's also saying, hey gang, we got to keep the grant as it is, it's keeping my personal businesses afloat. People have suggested that maybe we should cap the amount that goes to any particular production or any particular company, and I'm sure that Peter would fight that tooth and nail because he's grown accustomed to all that money and power, and there's probably a great metaphor out there for becoming corrupted by power and refusing to give up the thing you find so precious, but nothing springs to mind. Ultimately, the New Zealand government needs to ask itself some serious questions about what it's actually trying to achieve and what we want the New Zealand film industry to be. Do we want it to be 2,000 stressed freelancers in Miramar working on Alvin and the Chipmunks 4, a film that we gave $12 million, by the way? Or do we want to start figuring out how to build a sustainable local industry, one that is at least slightly self-sufficient before it's too late? Because time is running out. As of 2020, Ireland is now offering a 37% grant to films made in Ireland. And 37 is quite a lot more than 25. So are we going to have to start offering 38%? Is that the plan? Is that really worth it for our economy or the film industry we want to build? Do we want to give Weta hundreds of millions of dollars forever just to keep making Hollywood movies? Is that the end game? Is that the Avengers end game, New Zealand government? Maybe we need to have a serious think about how this thing ends, even if we all know that Peter Jackson finds endings difficult? Whew. And for those of you who are really paying attention at the start, you might remember I said that there were two ways that governments get mega corporations to work in their country: cold hard cash, or by making sure that the company has access to cheap labour. So far, I've only talked about the former, but you better believe that New Zealand does the latter too. We love that. But we're going to have to get to that next time in part 2 of Robbie Nicol limits his career and complains about weather. I'll see you then. And don't panic. I promise it won't be a trilogy.